Hello and good morning, geometry. So we are in our new classroom for the time being. So a couple of things look a little different than when we are in room 207. So something, if you had me or Dr. Shaw last year for algebra that you might remember, is the joke of the week. And so since I'll be recording both algebra and geometry videos here in my new classroom, you guys get to experience the joke of the week. So enjoy that. So I have you guys in class on A days. So I'm sure you have seen the email. We are sticking to our A day and B day routine, which means your date will always be the first one up here. So since I see you during A2, and day 1 for you would be on Monday, March 30th, that's the day you should be watching your video. Your next video, day 2, will happen on Wednesday, April 1st, and that's where your date will be happening, so you know which video goes with which day of distance learning. So I know it has just been over 2 weeks since we have been in the classroom, and we've spent most of that time practicing some of the old skills that we've had. And in fact, to actually start out with our new way of learning, we're going to stick with reviewing the first couple of units. So the first 3 or 4 geometry classes, we're going to be reviewing some old units that we have already mastered. And the first of which is our first unit, which was our algebra review on solving equations. So we know that we've been using a lot of our new geometry concepts to reiterate or to practice our algebra skills. So we're going to go through one example together today, and then I will post the link to your quizzes in this assignment as well. So once you watch this video, you'll be expected to go on to quizzes. Please make sure you use your first and last name, not a nickname. I know somebody had already used a nickname and they didn't get credit for the first one, but I don't know who you are unless you actually type your name in. So for this video, we're going to go through this example, solving together, and then you'll work on your quizzes, and then you'll be done for day 1. And we're going to slowly work through the old units before starting our new skills. So we should all know our mathematical vocab that we should be using. You guys have been in school now, or right before we left. We had just wrapped up trimester 2, which means that each of you have done at least 4 Do Now Teacher for problems so far this year. And what that means is that you have been practicing all of that mathematical vocab along the way. So when we are solving this equation together, I'm going to be saying the math vocab. I expect you guys to be saying it out loud when you're solving it. And then when you're working on your quizzes, you should be thinking about those steps and why those steps are happening, in what order. So we have a nice equation here. It is broken up by this equal sign, so we can actually split that equation into 2 sides, which make up 2 different expressions. So the first thing we need to look for when we're solving equations is if we need to use distributive property. Now I don't see any parentheses here, and I don't see any constant needing to be multiplied, so we can just move on to the next step, which is looking for combining like terms. So we do have some like terms here, however, they happen to be on different sides of this equation. So I'm going to start by getting my variable terms together, which means 2x and 4x are like terms. And don't forget, it does not matter which one you decide to move from one side to the other. However, you need to keep it consistent throughout. I know some of us always try to keep our coefficient positive, so you might be thinking about subtracting 2x from both sides. But then I also know that some of us always like to put our variable on the left side. So I'm going to actually start by subtracting 4x on each side. Though if you decided to subtract 2x, there's nothing wrong with that. So inverse operations, if you have 4x, to undo that, you need to subtract 4x. So 4x minus 4x is going to be 0. However, property of equality says what I do to one side, I have to complete on the other. So I'm going to line that up under my like term. So 2x minus 4x. And when I do the math, 2 minus 4 is actually negative 2. So I have negative 2x minus 10 is equal to positive 6. And after completing just one step, you have a standard two-step equation left. So the next thing you're looking for is, again, do you have any like terms? And we do. They're the constants in this equation, but again, they're on different sides, which means we have to utilize inverse operations. So if here is where my variable is on the left side of my equation, the constant I want to move would be this 10 here. And if this operation says minus 10, the inverse of subtraction would be addition. So I need to, again, complete inverse operations by adding 10 on both sides of my equation to keep it balanced. I now bring down 16 because 6 plus 10 is 16. And the term that I haven't used would be negative 2x. We're down to a one-step equation. And please do not forget that invisible operation is multiplication. Whenever you have a number directly in front of a variable, that coefficient, that's being held together using multiplication. And so if this operation is multiplication, the inverse would be division. So I can divide both sides of my equations by, don't forget, that's a negative 2. A negative 2 divided by negative 2 would be a positive 1, which is what I'm looking for. Remember, when you are solving equations, you want to be left with 1x, which is the same thing as just having 1x and x. And so x is going to be equal to 16 divided by negative 2 is negative 8. And so we have just found the solution to this multi-step equation. Don't forget, you can always check your solution. If you now know that x is equal to negative 8, you can substitute both of these variables with negative 8. You should have a balanced equation at the very end. So if you'd like to check that, please do let me know how it came out, if it was balanced or if we made any mistakes. Otherwise, the only thing you have left to do today is to go to your quizzes and complete that on your computers, or I guess you can work on them on your phones. You should have a scrap piece of paper out because you will not have enough time to try to guess and check in your head. So you should be working on a separate sheet of paper while you are solving your equations. That way you can show your work, and then you can just select your answer on the quizzes. Please don't forget, the last 3 questions on your quizzes is going to be following your daily 3 routine. That means you'll be asked to simplify an expression, either evaluate an expression or solve an equation. And then the last part will be graphing lines. So we're going to keep practicing those skills that we've already been practicing all year long. So that way, when we get back to school, we haven't forgotten everything. So stay well, everybody. I hope to see you soon. Otherwise, the next video will be posted on Wednesday, April 1st.